We need to talk about a deeply disturbing situation unfolding in Bangladesh, where a man's life was taken not in a court of law, but by a mob on the street. In this explainer, we're going to break down the series of events, look at the shocking allegations being made against law enforcement, and try to understand what it all says about the rising tensions in the country, based on the reports we're seeing. It all starts with this one brutal fact. A young man's life wasn't ended by a judge or a jury, but by a crowd. And this single horrific event has become a flashpoint, really exposing some of the deeper, more troubling tensions at play. So let's start with the incident itself. Who was the young man at the center of all this, and what exactly happened to him?
The victim's name was Dipu Chandra. He was only 25 years old. In the Mymensingh area of Bangladesh, he was attacked and beaten by a mob. But the reports detail a level of brutality that is just, it's hard to even process. After he was beaten, his body was then tied to a tree and set on fire.
Now, a big reason we know what happened is because of a video that went viral. It captured the moments leading up to his death, and it provides some pretty chilling evidence of how things went down. So the footage shows this really agitated crowd gathered right outside the factory where Dipu Das worked. Then you see the gate open, the mob just swarms in, and they take him away. The implication from the reports is pretty stark. This wasn't just a protest. This was a complete breakdown of order, where the mob was in total control. And that leads us to maybe the most disturbing part of this story. These are the serious allegations that this whole tragedy wasn't just preventable, but that some key people might have actually been complicit, either by what they did or what they failed to do. And the focus here is squarely on the factory and the police.
The acclaimed author and activist, Taslima Nasrin, shared the video, and she provided this context. She alleges that based on rumors, the factory's floor manager actually forced Dipu Das to resign from his job and then opened the gates to the mob, all without ever calling the police. You see how that just completely shifts the narrative? It goes from a spontaneous act of violence to something that feels, well, almost orchestrated. But Nasrin's allegations go even further, and this is where she implicates the police directly. She draws this absolutely chilling parallel to another case, the case of a man named Utsav Mangal. She claims that in that instance, the police had Utsav in custody at the police station and then allegedly handed him over to the mob themselves. Let's just compare these two for a second. With Dipu Das, the allegation is that the police failed to act. They didn't step in. But with Utsav Mandal, the allegation is so much more direct, that the police were actively involved in handing him over. According to these reports, this suggests a potential systemic failure, not just a one-time mistake. And this is really crucial. The reports frame this as more than just an isolated incident. To get the full picture, we have to look at the broader context, which seems to be a rapid-fire succession of violent events that have just cranked up the tension across the country. This timeline from the source material shows a really disturbing escalation. The violence reportedly started after the death of a student leader named Sharif Osman Hadi. That was followed by the mob killing of Dipu Chandra Das, and then another targeted shooting of a different student leader. It's just a rapid, violent sequence of events. So that most recent attack mentioned in the report targeted Motalib Sikdar, a leader in the Nationalist Citizen Party. He was shot in broad daylight in the Sonadanga area. Doctors reported that a bullet literally went in one side of his head and came out the other. I mean, it is an absolute miracle that he is reportedly out of danger, but you can imagine, an incident like that just adds more fuel to an already volatile situation. So what does this all add up to? When you connect these dots, the lynching, the serious allegations of police complicity, and then these subsequent attacks, a very concerning picture starts to emerge about the current climate. The key takeaway from the source material is really this. There is a growing concern about what's being reported as a rise in hatred directed at the Hindu community in Bangladesh. The idea is that these aren't just random acts of violence, but maybe symptoms of a larger, more troubling social trend. And that leaves us all with this final critical question. The rule of law depends entirely on institutions that protect citizens, especially from mob justice. But when those very institutions are accused of facilitating the mob, where do you go from there? It shakes the foundation of the entire system, and it's a question that demands an answer, not just for the victims, but for the future of the country itself.